Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. We have very active lifestyles. It's not all wandering the countryside aimlessly or scaring passing motorists. And we all love a good cup of joe. And there's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. Bold, robust, delicious. It's coffee that can wake the dead. With over a dozen different roasts and flavors, Deadly Grounds can satisfy the most finicky of coffee addicts. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
Whether it's trying to get through the workday or get through the zombie apocalypse, you need a break. When I need a break, I come to Deadly Grounds Cafe for a delicious cup of...
Zombie! Oops, I mean Yahtzee.
Hey, $15, that's a bargain at twice that.
Put it on your tab.
Yeah, you will. All right.
Is that mocha?
Strawberry.
Mocha.
You ready?
You're goddamn right I am.
Games, treats, curiosities. Deadly Grounds. Coffee to die for.
And we're back. Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of Takeover Tuesday. I'm your host, Benner, from Black Fawn Distro, and I'm joined by the awesome Brad from Deadly Grounds Coffee.
Hey,
Brad,
buddy,
how are you
I'm
doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good. So, hey, listen, like you took over our Instagram today. You were live from the Deadly Grounds Cafe in Curtis, Ontario. So that's headquarters, right? That's ground zero for everything that's come out of this company, right? For coffee. Is that where we were today?
Yeah, man. That's for Deadly Grounds Coffee Canada. Absolutely. So that's the cafe was kind of a labor of love after working at Deadly Grounds for the last 6 years before that here in Canada, and then my partner in the States, Tom, started it before that. But when we brought it up here to Canada, we knew that we wanted to do conventions, which is where we got our start, and where we met people like you, of course. And, we started doing our online sales up here. And then kind of that last pillar was opening up a really cool horror-themed cafe that you've been to now, and where we did our takeover from today.
Right. So yes. So every time we met on the convention circuit, and you have kept us alive and awake for all those conventions every single time.
Sobered up, you mean?
What's that?
Sobered up, you mean?
Yeah. Well, let's just say it turns the lights on, So,
yeah, right.
We've consumed so many sample sizes of coffee from Deadly Grounds, and you guys always do gangbusters in sales there. People love this brand, and it's such a unique sort of take on coffee. It's fun. It's interesting. It tastes great. I've actually got my Deadly Grounds mug here, which I got the other day at the store. So
yeah, man. Cheers.
Cheers. And I'm also drinking right now this Deadly Grounds Toxic Toffee, which is one of the brands and one of the flavors that you guys have. But these bags are amazing, $15. And I had never been to the cafe before until last weekend. And not for lack of trying, just every time I was in the Oshawa area, Curtis area, it was either it was late at night, you guys were closed, or it was early in the morning, you guys weren't open yet. So I'm always there in those weird times. But it was so awesome to come in because I've always seen photos of it. I've always talked to you about it, and of course, like all of our fans and everyone online got a sneak peek as to what to expect when you go in there. But it's worth the trip. It's such a cool, unique environment. It's not like any other coffee shop that you'll have ever been in. So where did that come from? Like, what did this location, like, was this mostly your idea, or you mentioned your partner in the States?
the cafe was basically my idea. When Katie and I, we brought Deadly Grounds to Canada, and our early idea, or my early idea to her, was, hey, if we can, I'd love to open up a physical location. And one of the reasons I wanted to do that was because of what we've learned on the road by doing the conventions that we used to go to, or that we still go to when we can. I basically wanted to keep that convention vibe going year round, and that was kind of my original idea for the cafe, was that it would be like a year-round horror convention. And what we do and how we make that happen at the cafe, of course, is always having Deadly Grounds coffee, and how we constantly create new roasts and blends and drinks in store for people to have. But then also using horror vendors that we're all used to on the road, that we see at all the shows, and bringing them into the cafe as well to sell their product. It gives them a physical brick and mortar store to sell to their targeted clientele,
Right. Yeah. And I noticed that too when I came in the store. So I saw like lots of artwork from our buddy Steve McGinnis, obviously, who we also know from the convention circuit. I know you were playing some of our films today on the televisions, which is amazing. Thanks for that. But also like the cup companies and stuff. Like I was able to pick up a They Live themed coffee mug as well, which is from a company that you work with as well. And yeah, it's such a unique kind of place to go, where I'm always talking about, we live in a day and age where, going somewhere needs to be a bit of an event, a bit of an experience. And, I think there's a lot of stuff to take photos of in that.
Absolutely. The rest of the year we try to.
Have the.
I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Brad, can you hear me?
I can barely hear you.
Okay, so we're just going to give Brad just a quick chance to just pop out and join back in. It's a great opportunity to talk a little. Check them out, which .ca, and you can order online. They actually do free local delivery for the in the area around the Oshawa Curtis area, and also you can order online. They'll deliver right to your door. So if you need coffee, you certainly definitely need to go to this website and order some up. It's 100% worthwhile. So check it out if you can. I think we've got Brad back. Let me just pipe him back in here. Brad, you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just dinner time, right? I mean, we're still living in this sort of like pandemic type thing. I think everyone gets home or jumps on the computer and starts, crushing Netflix as soon as they get home from work. So, sorry about that, everyone. But we were talking about, the cafe, accumulating all that stuff. Is that stuff that you've kind of bought yourself and then incorporated into the cafe, or was it stuff that you accumulated afterwards?
We do have a lot of our own collection there between basically everyone that works there, like myself, Katie, Ariel. We have brought a lot of our kind of personal collections or things that mean a lot to us. I think we're just having maybe
a little bit of difficulties here. Yeah, Brad, you might have to log back out.
Okay.
Yeah. So sorry guys, just having a bit of an issue here. So give me 1 second here. So yeah. So anyway, sorry about that, everyone. So we're just going to try and get Brad back here. I think he's going to log out and log back in just to see if we can kind of like trick the internet into making sure that we can do this interview. But like I was saying, like if you haven't checked out the cafe yet, definitely go down to Curtis. Make sure you go in there. Make sure you order. They have fantastic drinks. We're actually going to get to those in a second and talk about the creation of those and how they actually end up on the Deadly Grounds menu, which is insane. We're going to try and get Brad back in here. Brad, are you there?
I'm here.
There we go. Okay, so hopefully this works. If not, we might have to get back to it at some later date. But Yeah, it seems to be some sort of weird thing with the connection. So, yeah. Anyway, okay, you were saying, sir.
What was I saying? Oh, the our personal collection. So we have a lot of personal collection stuff at the cafe, but we also a lot of the stuff that's on the walls or anything else in there is actually for sale. Like we do bring in someone will come in and say, "Hey, I have a collection of living dead dolls," and we'll bring them in and we'll sell them for them. So become kind of like a destination for all things horror. If you want to buy something cool for a friend or a bag of coffee, or just come in and enjoy a drink and a sweet.
Yeah. So you have and I know I've talked to you about this before, but the baked goods that you have in there too. Those are in conjunction with locally, like those are locally sourced bakeries in the area, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We do bake some of our own in house, but then we also use a bakery in Ajax that does all of our squares and stuff like that for us.
Okay, awesome. So, this has been a pretty sought after brand too, right? So, I mean, Deadly Grounds has been, you've established this recognized brand on the convention circuit. Horror fans, you sell out every convention you go to. Like I've
Yeah,
seen it
pretty
happen.
much.
I'm just like, and I always think to myself, maybe I should have gotten into the coffee business. But how did things over the years, like how did it progress? Like, I mean, when did you get the idea to start the cafe, and how long did that take you to get off the ground?
The cafe, honestly, man, I had the idea that I wanted to do the brick and mortar store probably a year and a half after we brought it up here. And I had run the idea by Tom in the States. He's like, yeah, do it, man, if you can. Like, that's awesome. He said, I would have loved to have done something like that. But you said, like, it's a lot of work, right? So, the foundation was laid pretty early that I wanted to do it. I think it was something that even from the get-go. Funny enough, we actually started a small little little flea market at the Curtis Flea Market. We had a little kiosk there to begin, and we had a little store there. Me and my buddy Chris called Franken Store, and Franken Store was basically a mini version of Deadly Grounds, with no espresso and stuff like that. But we had Deadly Grounds coffee, we had tons of VHS and DVD, all horror, and we had some figures and stuff like that for sale, right? And Chris brought in some props, and so it was like a mini version of what we've created. So it was kind of like our little dipping our foot in to see what it would be like to do kind of an experience. And then that's where it kind of became from there. Like that's where it kind of started from. And yeah, man, like that was the early days of Deadly Grounds for us here.
And so, like, I was in the store the other day, and we were just talking. Obviously, I mean, like, I know everyone's sick and talking about like the pandemic and that sort of stuff. But
Yeah.
yourself as a business owner, I mean, you've gone through everything you've had to go through as a small business owner and getting a business off the ground, and now you have this global pandemic kind of hit you. And what are been the main challenges? Other than the obvious, but what have been the main challenges that you guys have faced as a coffee cafe as we kind of navigate through this weird COVID pandemic?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, the problem was we couldn't invite people into our physical location, right? So that immediately created an issue. And I mean, we've seen a lot of our colleagues that own cafes or other entertainment type venues have to close down. So, we're worried about that. But you kind of touched on it a little while ago. Like we started offering free local delivery around here so people could stay home and still get their stuff brought to their house. And we've always been doing online sales as well, of course. But the struggles that we had were certainly not having the store. And then we provide to about 140 stores across Canada as well that sell our product in their stores and boutiques. And of course,
Right.
with people being closed down, we're no longer providing to those people either, right? So there's a lot of stores that are no longer carrying the product or have now closed down, and so we lost that, which has been tough, and feel bad for those people, and it kind of trickles over to, of course, us as one of their vendors, right? But I mean, thankfully, and I count our blessings for this, because we were an online company first, and we were a coffee distribution company first. We really were able to weather the storm and basically work through COVID by doing distribution, online sales, and local delivery. So we were really lucky in that respect. And I know a lot of people didn't have that ability. A lot of people are trying to pivot during COVID and figure out how to survive. And we were lucky to have an established online business that can pump out the product fairly quickly.
Yeah, and we were just chatting the other day in the cafe when I popped by, and I think you might be in a fortunate position where I mean, you said your online sales have increased obviously since the pandemic because people don't want to go venturing out and that sort of stuff. But that I mean the coffee's so good. I mean, I'm not just saying that because you're on the show, but it is
Sure.
really good. Let me tell you something about this brand. This is my second favorite brand, or maybe my favorite brand. It's called Never Sleep Again. It is like the pick me up that you guys always serve at the conventions. This is what we got addicted to, at least. That's how we know you guys. But this coffee is amazing. If you need something to pick you up that's not going to like give you gut rot, this is the stuff. It's like a caffeine bomb, but without the side effects other than it just wakes you up and it's really tasty. So, I mean, for that, I know I've ordered online as well, and I'll continue to do so for sure. And I think that'll probably stick around, right? Like even after
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's right now, of course, being in Ontario, we don't know what's going to happen next, and that's the scary part. Are we going to go back to, a modified stage 2? Is it going to get even worse? We don't know. So, thankfully, we're prepared for increasing our production if we have to. Our roaster works in Toronto, so basically, it's kind of before, like during March, April, May, it was basically myself back and forth to Toronto to get product. Package it at our facility in Curtis. We do all of our work from the Curtis location. And then our workers like Ariel and Katie were packaging almost every single day. So it was like they would package on a Monday, Tuesday. I would deliver on a Wednesday, and I would have my car full of 30, 40, sometimes 50 orders in those couple of days, just in Durham region alone, and running around all over Durham region. And that was an 8-hour a day job, just doing that. So they would package one day, I would deliver the next, and we would just keep doing it that way. And it was crazy for a period of time there. Like I think I told you the other day, it was crazy because our sales in April matched what we had done the previous April, having a couple of conventions online and a cafe. And this year we only had the online. So people adjusted pretty quickly at home to knowing that, we're stuck here. We want to stay nice and caffeinated, at least, if we got to be stuck inside.
Yeah, and hopefully they love the product so much that they keep ordering. And I know that you guys started off with a couple of flavors, and to give our viewers a little bit of a background story. Like I can't remember when you guys started out, but I remember when we started doing conventions, like we both had operations that were smaller than they are now. So I like to think that we saw you guys kind of grow, and it was before we knew you, before you even had the cafe. Like I remember you kind of mentioning that, like, oh, thinking about opening a cafe. I was like, really? That's pretty crazy. Yeah. So, but like, where did like the flavor? How many flavors do you have now? Like, how many flavors does Deadly Ground, like ballpark?
Wow, man. So, I mean, we have our Deadly Grounds brand, and we also, as you know as well, we started about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I started 8-Bit Beans, which is our gaming line of coffee as well. So between the two brands, we have about 30 different, roasts and flavors now, which is crazy. And we're developing more all the time. Like literally, we are playing around with flavor profiles every week. And what can we do now? And creating new labels, creating the flavor to match the label. And sometimes that's how it starts. Sometimes we start with a label idea, and then we say, well, what flavor profile will match that label? And like to give you an example, a little bit of a sneak peek here, we have a new coffee coming out. It's not a new flavor. We've actually used the flavor before, and we've used it as like convention exclusives at Shock Stock one year and stuff like this. But we're bringing it on the menu full time, and we didn't know what to do with this as far as a regular label. It was actually our Christmas flavor last year, but now we're creating an actual 3D label. So it actually is going to come with a pair of 3D glasses that you put on to see the 3D image on the front of the bag. And that's going to be a Friday the 13th inspired, part 3 inspired label. And the flavor is going to be a Camp Crystal Lake s'mores flavor coffee. So that's kind of, it started off as I want to do a cool 3D label. Oh, that would go good with s'mores because, campfire and campground. And so that's how it kind of got developed. And that should be coming out in the next few weeks.
Awesome. So I was in the other day, and I was like debating what to get. I thought I was just going to get a coffee, which was my original idea. But then I didn't realize that the menu was so extensive in there. And it's like this insane menu. And you have So I tried two while I was there. I tried one on the Saturday, one on the Sunday because I was in town for the weekend. But I tried the White Zombie, which was I think it's a mocha coffee, a white chocolate mocha coffee or mocha
white
latte.
chocolate mocha, yeah.
And I tried the peanut butter one, and they were both like unbelievable. I could drink those every day of the week. So if you were closer to me, I would come in. You'd have a customer daily. But where do those where do the ideas for the mixed drinks come from? Is that just stuff again that you're trying out and kind of?
Yeah, I mean, much like our coffee flavors and roasts, we kind of started off with a couple in the beginning. We had 3 or 4, and then sometimes we come up with flavor profiles and then come up with a name for them, and then sometimes it's the opposite again. And basically a lot of it is spending time with going through the flavor list of syrups that we have or what we can add to it. It's not all syrups. Like sometimes like we have one called Camp Crystal Lake, which is also a mocha, and that actually has a giant marshmallow in it. So, it starts the base as a giant marshmallow. We pour white chocolate over that. Then the espresso actually gets, drawn over the marshmallow to make it melt a little bit. And then we build the rest of the drink. So, a lot of times when we're dealing with the flavors, that we'll take the flavor like salted caramel. One of our original drinks was a salted caramel latte. And we thought, well, salted caramel, we use rock salt instead of regular salt. Well, we'll call it the Winchester, a nod to the show Supernatural. So, where they use the rock salt and the guns for ghosts. So, that's kind of how we create our names and our flavors. Like we'll come up with a flavor profile usually. So like the latest one, for example, was called, is a butter pecan chocolate and caramel flavored latte that we created. And we actually put it out to our fans, which a lot of times we'll do that too. We'll put out like to our fans and customers on Facebook or Instagram and say, hey, we got this new drink. We're trying to come up with a name. What do you think? And we've done that with our coffees before too. And so somebody, the name's escaping me, actually came up with the name Rigor Tortoise for this because it's like a turtle's chocolate and flavored latte. Right. So we went with the name Rigor Tortoise instead of Rigor Mortis. So it just fits, right? And then, of course, it's pumpkin season right now. So we created another. And of course, when you talk about French vanilla or pumpkin, a lot of times people will say, well, you're a basic bitch if you drink that kind of stuff, right? A common term you hear about Starbucks people a lot. So instead of the basic bitch, we have a candy corn and white chocolate and pumpkin flavored latte, which we call the basic witch. So, we do little nods to pop culture and horror movies and the stuff that we love, right? So and that's what people love about coming into Deadly Grounds. They love looking at the menu, and every time somebody comes in for the first time, it's usually giggles and chuckles and oh my god, they have a white zombie, and they'll have a good laugh at that, which we love. Yeah, that's and I had what was the peanut butter one that you made? The peanut. That's the peanut blutter.
Peanut butter, yeah, and that was good too. And it's like I love peanut butter and chocolate, and that's I mean it's amazing. Like you just listen to Brad talk about a drink that has a giant marshmallow in it, and like go to this place. I'm telling you won't be disappointed. Listen, it's right near a couple of other coffee places. We'll say we won't name them because I don't want to give them a free. But you go a few extra steps, you can go to Deadly Grounds, and you will be rewarded. And also as well, you're not paying like $8 a coffee or for a large in there. It's actually very, very reasonably priced. And I think the quality is a lot, is way, it's just tastier. So also if you're looking for something to do, you've got a back room back there. That's like a small room, limited now, right? Because of the COVID restrictions, but that was part of the idea of the cafe. It was a destination for people to go to, right?
For sure. And, and we're always playing with those ideas. Like when we started the cafe, we weren't as well known in Durham region. So, we might've been known on the road and known in Toronto and in Hamilton and London, everywhere would go. But our way, people would buy the coffee, beans, and grounds, but trying to build the brand and knowing that it's a physical location, cafe, entertainment place was a little tough. So, we would do okay during the day as a cafe. But my original idea was that, it was also going to be a nighttime destination, right? Like as horror fans, let's go hang out at this horror cafe on a Friday night and have a latte and watch whatever horror movie is playing on the screen, or jump into a video game that's horror themed as well. And we tried that for a while, but we just couldn't get the traction at night unless we were doing a special event, which we've done several times, and those are really super successful. We do zombie bingo sometimes, which is crazy. We turned that entire back room that you saw there into a Camp Crystal Lake campground one time for Friday the 13th 2 years ago, and that was phenomenal. I mean, we did photo shoots with photo ops with Jason all day in a campground, and our good buddy Chris from Super Zuka and Citrus Media put that on, and he did an amazing job. Another time for Predator Day, he turned it into like Predator's trophy room. I mean, it was phenomenal. And so we miss doing stuff like that.
And you also hosted the Fear Mall, right, which was kind of like an outdoor convention that was right outside in the parking lot, right outside your cafe. So we obviously sent our crew down there to check it out. It was awesome. All we heard was great things about it all day. And I know, like, we've talked a lot about conventions and stuff, and how, like, for us as well as you guys, like, I mean, most of our conventions, if not all of them, were canceled this year. Also, another shout out to the Shock Stock guys for hosting their drive-in events, which was really cool. But other than that, there wasn't a lot going on. Me and the guys were talking about this the other day. We kind of feel like something like an outdoor event is probably going to be the thing that comes back. And do you have plans to kind of look at that when things going to get maybe back to normal, maybe next spring, or at least when we're out of the winter, put it that way?
For sure. Yeah, I mean, the idea was we were going to do another Fear Mall with Adam from Rotten Rags. That was the idea, because him and I put it on last year. He organized most of it last year, because I mean, I'm so busy with the cafe and 8-Bit Beans that I needed somebody else to help and organize the Fear Mall aspect, and that's what he did last year, which was amazing. And the outpouring of support for that was ridiculous. I mean, I think we had 30 or 35 vendors. We had a food truck, and I can't remember, but I believe the number for a one-day event, like 10 to 4, was somewhere around 1,500 people came through that day, which was just ridiculous. I mean, we had people saying that, they did more, like vendors say they did more at our event than they did at Fan Expo over 4 days, and that's just crazy. But it's a dialed in audience, right? And it's a destination. So, to your point, yes, we wanted to do another Fear Mall in the fall, and that was the plan, that we were going to in October have another Fear Mall, but we didn't want to, and I think we probably might have been able to maybe skirt it a little bit and put something on, but we just didn't want to be the place that did that and then something happened and then you kind of get black flagged, right? Or you get kind of a name for yourself by putting on an event and then getting a flare up of COVID or whatever. So we didn't really want to do that. So the plan is hopefully to do it again in the spring. Because I mean, even when we were starting to even think about planning the second one, which we had from the beginning of from the end of the first one, people were already signing up, wanting to be a part of it. So hopefully we can do it again.
Yeah, I mean, I can testify to that for sure too, because it was one of our most successful events, just because the costs of doing it were low for vendors, and they had a ton of people come through that were interested, and like you said, kind of I don't want to say a captive audience, but people that they're already drawn to it. And I think that's kind of the thing that I think is going to get people back to doing these things when it's safe to do so. Of course, is that having it so it's like, well, when I go and I'm getting a drink, it's part of the theme. I'm getting something to eat. It's part of the theme. It's all together. I feel like a lot of the conventions sometimes they've lost that. Some of them have lost that charm over the years, and I think that's something that we're going to see coming back. And so I'm excited for the next one for sure.
Yeah, we need to see that, and we all see that, right? I mean, we've been doing the shows for a long enough time now that we have seen the shift to pop culture being a predominant factor at a lot of these events, Comic-Cons and whatnot, and horror being pushed to the side or the back burner. And you can't blame the organizers necessarily. It's just how it is. But the cool thing I like to think about what we do is kind of more like a fair, like it's more like a fall fair type thing, where, like you said, people come because you have the physical location that's already there, and you're really just expanding out from that physical location and saying, okay, well, now we're going to put all this in the parking lot, we're going to put this down the side, and people come in and they, I talk about that day quite a bit, because I was literally stuck on the espresso machine just pulling shots for 4 hours straight, and that's all I did was just pull shots, and I couldn't get away from it because we were just so busy. And they would literally come in to the cafe, get their drinks, and we had a chili cook-off in the back as well. So they'd come and check out the chili cook-off, the Sawyer family chili cook-off, and then they'd go out to the parking lot where they got to see such cool stuff. And that was the key. Like, we didn't want to charge a lot because we didn't need to. The space is free, basically. All we wanted any money for at all was basically to secure a spot for yourself and to put a little bit of it towards marketing. And the cool thing about us having the cafe already is we already have a lot of built-in marketing because people are coming every day, and it's just giving them another excuse to come back later in the week or later in the month, and conventions don't have that, right? Conventions are really basing it on pushing it through their sales channels and their marketing channels to get people to come out to their expensive event, usually. And we give them more of a vendor-driven event, which I think is a different approach.
Yeah, and I've always said
it's free for people. But
if you have an event and the people coming through the door are happy and the vendors are happy, you've got a successful event, and that's I think is key. And sometimes that just happens, and sometimes it doesn't. But I do feel like making it, like you said, like kind of like a fair, kind of an environment where everything is kind of cool to check out. Like there's these multiple things that you can kind of go through, I think is key, right? So, but I mean, again, from your point of view, when you're looking at when you're looking at conventions and then balancing that with the cafe, has this year been, from that point of view, kind of a bit of a blessing as far as like not having to stretch yourself too thin over all those events, because you're doing a lot, right?
To a certain degree, for sure. I mean, this year was definitely tougher. Years past were definitely tougher. Like last year was really tough because we were building 8-Bit Beans, the arcade. So that was a whole other project that we had on the go, and still trying to do conventions. Fan Expo was at that period of time, and then Frightmare. And so we were flat out busy. And literally last year it was, okay, Katie, Ariel, you guys go do Frightmare. I'll do Shock Stock. We'll all do take a break and close the shop down and do Fan Expo. So it was really like basically splitting everyone up to go and do all these events that we were able to do, or that we had on our plate, while still trying to run both locations and handle our distribution line as well. So yeah, it was tough, but I mean, it's still fun, right? Like I miss it. I miss the conventions, man. But yeah, as far as it being easier, totally. This year's been way easier from a logistics point of view. But man, I don't know. I miss seeing the fam.
And like I've been at conventions where you've sold coffee to a lot of prominent people, and I know some of the guests at the conventions. I see Deadly Grounds pop up in my Instagram feed, not from you, like from other people I know that are just like, I'm at Deadly Grounds, man. Check out this coffee.
It's surreal.
Who's the craziest person that you've served coffee to that you're like, this is so weird, like you said, this is surreal that I'm making this guy, or I'm selling a bag to lady or whoever? Like what's the craziest experience you've had doing that?
Well, the coolest experience for me was definitely George Romero. I mean, George was a hero of mine. I mean, a big inspiration for me doing anything business related in the horror industry. And I never forget, I think it was Fan Expo 2015. He was there, and it was the first time I ever met him, but I had a chance in the past two, and I wasn't able to make it work several times. So this was finally the chance to meet him. And Katie had organized as a secret for me to go and get a picture with him, which I did. I was like, oh, this is so cool. And then later that day, Tom had come up from the States, because this was our first major convention. So Tom came up to help us out. And he was walking by George's booth, and he happened to not have anybody in line at that time. And he went up to him and he said, oh, Mr. Romero, can I get an autograph? And he's like, absolutely. So he got an autograph, and he's like, oh, he noticed the shirt, and he's like, you guys are that horror coffee company. So that's really cool. He says, can I buy one of your guys' mugs? And of course, I mean, come on, George Romero, you're not buying anything from us, man. Like, Jesus, you can have, here's the fucking company, right? Like, so Tom comes back to the booth, and he's like brimming from ear to ear. And he's like, George wants one of our mugs. I'm like, what? So him and I went up to the booth, and we had like one of our Deadly Grounds coffee mugs, like you have there, a different style, but like one of those mugs. And he's, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. And he had that thing up on his area where he was doing autographs all week, man.
Really?
Like, using it for his water. And so that was just so surreal. And so fast forward. So I mean, I went back, this was day one of Fan Expo. I went back to the booth, and I'm like, we can go home now. Like, this Fan Expo is over as far as I'm concerned. Like, that was a shining moment for me, right? And then it kind of, from there, man, like it just, every show, like I kind of have this list. I'm like, okay, I want a Deadly Ground, whoever is at the show that I'm really into, right? Like Linda Blair or Tom Savini or whatever. So it was really cool. want to say it was Dark Carnival, I believe. And Bill Moseley was there. Yeah, it was Dark Carnival. And Bill comes up to the booth. He's, my buddies. And you know what he did? He pulled out his own Deadly Grounds coffee mug that he already had and came behind and got his own coffee. He already had one of our mugs that he brought on the road with him. Like, what? You know, I was like, this is just crazy. So, you know, we've had a lot of opportunities there. And you know, I get starstruck with that kind of stuff, especially people like Bill Moseley and Tom Savini and George, of course. I mean, that was just surreal. Like, you know, it's just, if you would have told me as a kid that I'd have these opportunities, you know, would have been like, you know, get out of here.
And you know what, people, I mean, I talk to some people and they're just like, yeah, well, what's the big deal? Like, who cares? And it's like, but you don't understand. It's like when you've watched those movies and grown up on them and they've shaped you in some way, shape, or form as either a film fan or as a creative person or whatever, you meet them and it's still like I always got like, yeah, like I've met some people over even through the convention circuit, and it's funny to talk to them because over time I've just said I've had weirder conversations with certain celebrities, and because it's just funny to talk about just random stuff with them, right? So you're not even talking about movies, you're talking about coffee now, right? Which is like not something.
Who would think that you'd be talking about coffee in the horror industry, right? But you know, and I think, you know, talk about business for a second. I think, you know, the idea with Deadly Grounds was to find this niche, and that's what Tom did. Tom found this niche in the horror industry, and then we just kind of took it and just ran with it a lot, you know, feverishly up here, and that was my plan. I wanted to make this a business. I didn't want to work in the corporate world my entire life and have this as a side gig. This had to be the gig, right? And I think we've been pretty successful with that. But you know, just one more thing about the celebrity thing. I always laugh at this because I talked to my mom about this. Because I think we're close in age. I grew up watching Degrassi and you know, Joey Jeremiah and all that stuff. And we had an opportunity we met Pat at our first Hamilton Comic-Con that we did. And again, kind of starstruck. Oh my God, I grew up watching, like, you know, Pat on TV and Joey and the whole crew. And Pat and I started a friendship from that, which was crazy. I never ever thought that I'd be friends with Joey Jeremiah, you know? And so and Pat's been at the house several times, and I never forget the first time I told Mom that. I said, Mom, remember when I was like 12, 13 years old and watched Degrassi? I said, can you imagine that 12 and 13-year-old boy in small town Newfoundland, nonetheless, being friends with this guy? You know, and I've grown up, and now as an adult man, I'm friends with Pat, you know, Joey Jeremiah, which blows my mind. You know, it's just like you think about. I think about watching that when I was a kid in that really small town in Newfoundland, and yeah, it's crazy.
And then thinking to yourself, I'm going to serve that guy a cup of coffee one day.
Right. And have him in my house. Like, what the hell, you know?
All right. So I just want to let everyone that's tuning in right now, if you've got a question for Brad, if you've got a coffee question or a horror question or anything you want to ask him, just drop it down in the comments below, and we'll try and get to them before we go off the air here and throw them up on the screen. So if you want to talk some shit about Deadly Grounds, all good shit, of course, post it down below. Or if you've got a question about the process and when the ideas come from, post it down below, and we'll get to them after this segment. But before we get there, we have a little segment that we call Rapid Fire. And Brad, are you into this? I know you've been taking over our Instagram all day, but it's now time for you to jump into the seat to face some hard-hitting journalistic questions. You ready?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, so here we go. Just a quick note that Rapid Fire is brought to you by Wellington Brewery. So sorry, Wellington, I cheated on you today with Deadly Grounds coffee. But Wellington Brewery is a fantastic brewery out of Guelph. They sponsor us. They keep Black Fawn Distro running throughout the year at all of our conventions, as well as at home now. And they are located in Guelph. They also have free local delivery, or you can walk up to their handy walk-up window, which is located at their brewery on Woodlawn Road in Guelph, and you can pick up beer directly from them, contactless, in a safe environment. So check it out, Wellington Brewery. But here we go, Brad. You ready?
All right, man.
Okay. So help us out. What's your favorite horror film of all time, and why?
Return of the Living Dead is probably my all-time favorite. And it goes back to when I was a kid. At my grandma's house after dinner, I had a big family. They'd always watch a movie, and it was usually a family-friendly movie. But this one night they brought Return of the Living Dead, and I was like 6 years old. And they put this movie on and said, Brad, you got to go upstairs. You can't watch this one. But I mean, I'm a 6-year-old kid. What does a 6-year-old kid do, right? You poke your head down around the corner and you see what's on the TV. So the first time I poked my head down around the corner, it says, this movie is based on actual events. Brad, go upstairs. Oh shit, okay, go back upstairs. Well, the next time I come down, I put my head down and see this fucking Tarman on the screen, and I'm like, this is based on true events. So I was like, and I just thought this was real. I was like 6 years old, so it blew my mind, and I thought it was real. And of course, you became, you figured out it's not. But that was the nugget that was laid in my head for horror from that point forward, and I was just captivated by it. And now, yeah, that's become one of my favorite movies. If you come to my house, most of the posters around my house are signed by cast from Return of the Living Dead or inspired by Return of the Living Dead. And what I like about it is that it's horror, but it's comedy horror, and it just has, it's punk. It's just got everything that I love, man.
I think those two movies for me, like, I think they have part one and part two, maybe some of the best theatrical poster art that was ever created.
Oh, man.
I have shirts for both of them, and they are just they're it's just so cool. And I remember seeing those posters like in the video store and stuff like that too. So it's a favorite of mine as well. So listen, we got another rapid fire question. You got to pick one of these, so you have to pick one. But I can only pick up one flavor of Deadly Grounds coffee. Which one would you tell me to get?
Never Sleep Again. You're already on it, man. Never Sleep Again is the one that we created. Yeah, you got that one, and that's we hand mixed that one. So that was one that we created, especially after we already had a few going, and we wanted to be totally transparent with you. We wanted to have something to answer Death Wish coffee out of the state. So Death Wish was getting a lot of notoriety. They were getting a lot of. They had a big. They'd won a Super Bowl commercial, so they got a lot of fame. They got really well known for that, and their brand just took off, right? As it would. So we'd get people coming up in our early days. They don't do it anymore, but in the early days, they'd come up to us at a show and they'd be like, "Oh, you're that Death Wish coffee." I'm like, "No, we're a different death coffee." And, so I'm like, I went to our roaster. I'm like, "Can we create something that's got a higher caffeine level that I can say, no, we're not Death Wish, but we've got this, one here that's on par, but it's even better, and it's not going to give you like gut rot like you mentioned earlier." So that's where Never Sleep Again came from. Now it's a hand mix. We do it right in our facility. So if you come to the cafe and you ask for a bag of Never Sleep Again, we're literally doing it on the spot, mixing our two beans that we use for it and producing it for you. So yeah, that's number one.
So just to dig into that a little bit, what's the caffeine count in that coffee? Like, what is it comparable to, and how much higher is it than, let's say, a regular coffee that you would get at any other coffee place?
We've never measured the actual amount. So the way we do it is we say that it's a higher caffeine content than a typical medium roast, like say a Tim's or a McDonald's or like a Pike place from Starbucks. And how we do that is we take two of our most popular beans, our Dot's Diner, which is a really light roast. Light roasts always have way more caffeine. So we take our light roast, we combine it with our dark and deadly, and we have our ratio that we use, and you get Never Sleep Again. And that basically gives you a high caffeine content for a medium roast everyday drinking coffee. But we've never actually gotten that measured.
Well, let me tell you, I got this bag right at the cafe, and it was hand mixed and hand prepared, and then put it into my hands, and it'll be going into my belly later on tomorrow morning. So, okay, all right. Well, that's good to know. So here's a quick one. So you got a yes or no. This is a yes and no question coming up. So the Steven Seagal movie On Deadly Ground is more legendary than Deadly Grounds coffee.
Oh, damn, man. So far. Can I say that?
Sure. We'll give you that one. We'll give you that one.
For now.
So coming up, tell us a little bit more. Pennywise is featured in your cafe from the It movies. He's trying to convince you to come down into the sewer. What's he luring you down to the sewer with? You yourself.
Is this an R-rated podcast or? No. For me, oh man. I mean, I'd like to say coffee, but I've got to get that covered. Probably an endless amount of horror movies and video games. And a bit of wrestling in there too. And
There's always a bit of wrestling.
Yeah, man. Classic, got to be the classic. So like, give me all like the back catalog of like Survivor Series and SummerSlam and all that. That's stuff I'm set.
Awesome. Okay, and the last question, rapid fire. What do you want? You've been given $100,000 from wherever. What would you like to add to the Deadly Grounds Cafe that isn't already there?
Oh, I would want to find some. Okay, I'll tell you what I'd really like to have. I'd like to have the original trioxin barrel from Return of the Living Dead as the feature prop in our cafe.
Okay,
the one right from the set.
Awesome. Okay, well, thanks a lot, and thanks for being a good sport about this and doing the rapid fire questions. Again, brought to us by Wellington Brewery here in Guelph. They got a great new lager called Hell's Lager, Hell's Yeah, and you can pick up at your local LCBO or in Guelph at the brewery. So thanks again, Brad, for doing the rapid fire questions. And we've got a couple comments coming in online. Let's just take a look here. Okay, so we've got a quick question from Tracy. She's saying, what do you put in the coffee that makes it so addictive? Asking for a friend.
Tracy, I don't know, but I know you have just about every single one that we have. So it's got to be something, right? I think the difference is the beans that we use, no doubt. Like we make sure that our beans are sourced from the best farms that we can. Our roaster that does all this for us, like we work hand in hand with those people. We work hand in hand with our food scientists in Scarborough who create our flavors for us. So like I come up with a flavor typically, or we'll come up with it together and we'll say, okay, let's try this one. And we'll go to our flavor scientists and they'll come back and they'll give me a little vial and I'll mix it up in our place in Curtis, and we'll keep sampling it until we find like the perfect flavor. And, to be honest with you, it really comes down to what you're tasting is basically what I did, but mostly myself, and Katie was involved with it quite a bit too, determining that was the best coffee we can make for a medium roast, for a light roast, for a dark roast, for caramel biscotti, for Death by Chocolate. It had to be perfect. Like it had to be, if we liked it, we think that other people were going to like it, and it had to not taste like chemicals either. And that was a big thing. Flavored coffee, and I don't know how many people have told me at a convention, like where we'll sample like Death by Chocolate or the Toxic Toffee, and someone would come up and that's all we have right now. They'd be like, "Oh, I don't like flavored coffee though." I'm like, "Try our flavored coffee. Like I'm guaranteed you'll change your mind." And man, I'm telling you, 9 out of 10 of those people are like, "Shit, that is good flavored coffee," because most flavored coffee companies or other companies that use flavored coffee, they use a really shitty bean because their philosophy is we're going to flavor it anyway, so who cares? But that's totally the wrong approach. Our approach is we want it to still taste like the best damn cup of coffee ever. We just want it to be accented by the flavor profile that we're telling you, like caramel or pumpkin or whatever's in there. But you're still starting with a great bean. You could take that flavoring out, and you're left with a damn good cup of coffee.
And I know I've mixed all kinds of stuff into some of the blends you've given. So I mean, I've mixed on Christmas. I've put in some Baileys, like table cream. You can put a couple of vanilla shots in it, and the flavors are still there and are not necessarily too overpowering. And you do, like you said, you have that kind of that really good cup of coffee that you want anyway, which is like important to us caffeine fiends because we need that to function. So okay, great. So quick comments we got a comment from 8-Bit Jess. She says it's the best shit.
Sure is.
Talking about the coffee. And our good friend Steve McGinnis is piping in here, says Never Sleep Again is my favorite Deadly Grounds blend. Mine too, Steve. I love it so much.
Well, side note, Steve McGinnis created that label for us on Never Sleep Again.
And that's the one with the eyeball, right? So this is an eyeball. It's being pulled open and also stapled open.
Steve has done several of our labels, and the great thing about Steve is I'll go and I'll say, "Hey, buddy, I've got this idea for a new coffee. Here's some inspiration." And with this one in particular, I'm like, "Okay, it's called Never Sleep Again. We all know what that's a nod to. Nightmare on Elm Street." And I said, what I want is to skirt IP and not get any trouble here. The label has to have features from the film that we can get by with, and that's when he came out with the painted fingernail that has Freddy's sweater colors on it, and the girl skipping in the eyeball. So you can see the little girl skipping in the middle of the eyeball. So those are all the little nods to the movie.
Pick that up, but yeah, she's right there. So she's skipping it, and then that's the fingernail that's painted red on black. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, Steve does some amazing work too. And he's an artist in Ontario, and we always see him actually at the conventions and that sort of thing. And I've got artwork of his hanging in my living room. And again, I think I saw 3 pieces that were in the cafe the other day, maybe more.
Oh yeah, at least between original pieces and prints, there's a lot there from Steve and Lee Howard as well. We mostly get most of the stuff from those 2 amazing artists, but we have some other artists in there as well.
And just got another comment from Tracy, just as a follow-up. She says, in all seriousness, though, thank you for continuing to sell and ship during the pandemic. Helped me get through these crazy months. I don't think she's alone in those sentiments. I know I can testify to that as well. It has been a couple, yeah, and it has been a couple of crazy months, and just kind of getting back to just talking about where we are. We've got a little ticker at the bottom saying you're here to join us to talk about coffee, horror films, and the state of the world. We're in the biggest pandemic that in last 100 years, which to me I think is crazy because I think we're doing okay. Obviously, we got a lot of work to do still, and we're entering the winter. It'll be a challenge for sure, and a lot of people are struggling out there, and we want to acknowledge that. However, I feel like when we look back on this, I don't think there's been a lot of generations that have lived through something that's affected this many people throughout the entire world. And one of the things for myself is like I'll call a guy, I might be on the phone with a guy in like Arizona or California, or we just did some film festivals, so I was talking to people in Europe. Everyone's going through the same thing. Everyone's had partial lockdowns, or everyone's wearing masks and that sort of stuff. So what's the as a roast master, coffee maker, whatever, I know you wear a lot of hats, but where do you see the coffee business going post pandemic? Do you think anything's going to change? Do you think it's just going to remain where it is now, or?
Well, we don't think there's going to be much of a change, to be on the technical and business side of it. Costs really haven't changed, and nothing has really been affected too much as far as coffee shortages, which are always concerns during anything like this. Anytime there's major floods in the world or any major, weather type issues in most of the regions that we buy from, Colombia, Honduras, places like that. Of course, one of the big problems going into this was how is that going to affect our prices and stuff. And thankfully, so far, we've been okay with that. And better than we ever have been. I think one thing that this pandemic has done for us anyway, as it's allowed people at home that are browsing the internet because they have nothing better to do to finally come across us that maybe we've never seen. We get that a lot. I didn't even know about this company, and they order. And you mentioned it earlier. You hope that they order and reorder, and we get that a lot. When I look at our analytics, a lot of the people that are ordering are reordering. We see a big capture rate of people that reorder, which I guess is a testament to the product. Hopefully the service too. But I think what it's going to do is now when people finally feel comfortable enough to go out in the world and be back and travel and can travel, I think for us, I've always looked at Deadly Grounds, the cafe, as being kind of like Pike Place for Starbucks. A lot of people want to go to Pike Place in Seattle to see the original Starbucks and go to the original Starbucks. That's what I want people to do with Deadly Grounds. I want people to travel and come to the original, to come to the place where their coffee is coming from. And we get a lot of people that do that now. I mean, it's nothing to come through the cafe on a Saturday and ask where people have come from. We have people that have come down from Pembroke. They drove all the way from Pembroke just to come to the cafe.
How far is that from Curtis?
Pembroke, I believe, is about a 3.5 hour drive.
Wow.
And we've had people come down as far as London. We had a family come in from London a few Sundays ago, 4 of them. We had every weekend, somebody will say, we drove all the way from Barrie, London, Ottawa. It's crazy. So that's already a testament to people wanting to come to the place that they get their stuff from. So that's kind of cool. Right. I hope that we see a lot more of that, post-pandemic.
So, and obviously, we've got we're coming up on Halloween, but there's Christmas is right around the corner as well. So I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves here, but you've got some new stuff coming out just in time for the holidays. What can you tell us about that, and where can people get it?
So typically every year we bring out 2 to 3 Christmas seasonal roasts. Last year we had 3. This year we're having 3 as well. 2 of them are returning. One is a Ferrero Rocher inspired coffee, so like a chocolate hazelnut cream flavored, which is super tasty. Yeah, our original Christmas coffee that we launched with up here, it's called Roasted Christmas, and it has the creepy Santa on the front, and that's like a maple orange brandy vanilla flavor. So I call it Christmas in a cup. It's basically Christmas morning in a cup. And for this year, we've got a brand new coffee coming out. I just got the label 2 days ago, and it is killer. And it's called Krampusnacht, and it is a spiced eggnog flavored coffee that will be launching in the next couple of weeks. And I'm super excited.
Well, those sound great. I mean, you were mentioning like people like reordering and stuff like that. I think one of the fun things about Deadly Grounds is that and the coffee flavor is good that once you have 2 or 3, you do kind of want to start diving into the other ones. And if you got like Ferrero Rocher, coffees. I mean, who doesn't want to try that, right? I mean, it's
Right.
like you'd be, I guess, if you didn't have a sweet tooth, but still, it's not super sweet like a lot of the other
No.
flavors out
Well,
there.
one
Right?
thing that people are always concerned about is are the coffee sweet? They're not sweet at all until you put something in them. Or you can drink them what I call flat. Like if you just drink them black, there's no sweetness to them at all until you put sugar or sweetener in them. So you can still enjoy the flavor profiles of those things without having having the sugar and the calories, right?
Yeah, for sure. Which is something I try and make sure. I usually do like a little bit of cream in the flavored coffees and
Yeah.
maybe a little sugar depending, or a little honey. But I try to never sleep again. I drink black. And as Chad will tell you a funny story one day about me ordering black coffee with cream, but I'll save that for another time. But I know he's thinking about it right now. He's tuning in. I'm sure he is. So, Brad, hey, listen, thanks again for joining us. I'll let you go. I know you're a busy man. You need to get lots of sleep because you're out pounding the pavement and breaking shoe leather, getting all these deliveries done. But for all of our viewers out there, please, if you're watching live, if you're going to watch this interview later, go to Deadly Grounds. It's deadlygroundscoffee.ca. You can check out the there's some photos in there from the cafe, and you can also order your fix of Deadly Grounds coffee, flavored or non-flavored, online. And you have free to local delivery in the Curtis, Oshawa area.
Yeah, it's not free right now, actually. So it is. We do local delivery right now. It's not free, but we did do it free during the pandemic, like early on before the cafe reopened. And the reason we had to do that, to be quite honest, is like we were getting a lot of people using it. But then when the cafe reopened, we had to curb the amount of being out of the office, basically, and by having a little bit of a charge for local delivery, we had to implement that so that we weren't out all the time. But we do offer curbside pickup, and you can come and press a number when you get to the cafe, and we'll bring it out to you.
Okay, awesome. So free delivery anywhere in Canada. Brad will come directly to your door and drop it off.
Exactly. I'll get him a jet.
What do you charge for local delivery? Just so people know.
I believe it's like $6 for local, something around there. And we try to keep our shipping across Canada as low as possible. But I mean, I'm sure as you guys know as well, shipping in Canada freaking sucks, man. And we try to keep it. We work with a shipping broker to keep it as cheap as possible. But even then, like we only charge what we have to charge to cover the cost. And sometimes if you're in BC or up, somewhere north, it can get kind of expensive. But we try to keep it as cheap as possible.
Well, I mean, it's not that much, but so sorry, my mistake. I don't.
No, that's okay. We were doing that. I know that was kind of confusing.
So, but I mean, I know everyone appreciates you at the conventions, both fans and vendors alike, like ourselves. And so, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for taking the time to take over Instagram. You're going to stick around for a few minutes afterwards, just so we can talk about some other stuff. But thanks again for joining us, and thanks for adding everything and showing us your business. And again, for anyone out there who's looking for a gift and stuff like that, deadlygroundscoffee.ca. It's a great way to support a local business. And our horror community is all about supporting each other. We've been very, very good at that. All of us and all of our fans for both of our companies have done that over the years, which we very, 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 very much appreciate. But it's a great opportunity to support a small business. They create jobs, and they've got a great product to boot, and it's great coffee. So hey, go to Deadly Grounds Cafe in Curtis, Ontario. And just our final sign off is that, hey, listen, we know we're still in a pandemic right here, but let's stay safe and help out. So wear a mask, wash your hands, practice social distancing, and think about others and help out where you can. So make sure you're thinking about your neighbor, thinking about your family and their families, and let's make sure we band together. We try and get back to normal as soon as we can. And hey, we'll hopefully see you back at conventions as soon as we can. And Brad, again, thanks so much for joining us. And we'll see you on the other side.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
See you guys.